So since we're at 11:15, I'll get started. Good morning, good evening. Thank you everybody for joining our session. Today, myself and Sangeeta would be talking about building event-driven experiences with custom IO events. To start with, we'll start with a quick introduction. I'm the product manager for runtime and events. You must have heard about the app builder GA announcement yesterday, and these are the part of the framework, both the products. And over to Sangeeta for a quick introduction.
Hello everyone, my name is Sangeeta Krishnan and I'm a computer scientist. I've been working with Adobe I/O events for the last 5 years and have been working extensively on custom I/O events. So over to you, Kanika.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Here, who we are, and we started with the introductions. In the next 30 minutes, we'll cover with why event-driven thinking, about the overview, a quick introduction to custom IO events, how to use custom IO events, and Sangeeta then would go through an amazing demo for how custom IO events are used. We'll try to reserve some time for Q&A, but in case not, please feel free to add everything in the chat pod and we'll keep addressing the questions as and when. So we'll get started. Nowadays, everything in today's world is event driven. I mean, talk about any businesses. All businesses right now need ability to react to real-time events. And the businesses want to deliver customer experiences. And they have to be timely, targeted, effective, and obviously a lot of personalization that is needed in these times. And this actually opens up a lot of opportunities in the real world where digital businesses can respond to real world events to innovate, create experiences, and be efficient. And this actually drives to the thinking of event driven, which is something which is event centric, and digital business strategies are actually trying to guarantee continuous processing with this event driven thinking. Next slide, please. So a quick use case of this event-driven solutions or event-driven thinking comes in from a simple example on any of the e-commerce website, which most of us use nowadays. For example, let's talk about Amazon. A use case of cart abandonment. For example, you are a customer who's putting something into the cart and is ready to check out. But for some reason, you start comparing prices and you do not complete the checkout. What happens at this time? This actually gives the business an opportunity to convert or make a conversion of the abandoned cart that was left. And this can be actually done by events, as simple as just firing an event when you see a cart has been abandoned for a couple of minutes. And that then gets delivered by the webhook to an application, which could probably send some discount coupons or some offer or a personalized email to you, which probably would help you complete the purchase. This is just one example, but in today's world, you would see every business, every vertical, every industry touching upon a lot of real-time use cases that are needing to be responded right away. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about what are the characteristics of the event-driven architectures. If you see in the diagram, we have a producer, a consumer, and a broker. Now, what iEvents does is we are actually coordinating the delivery of an event from a producer to a consumer, which the producers, if you see on the left-hand side, are all the Adobe services. And on the right-hand side, if you see, are the consumers that are our third-party developers. Now, getting more into details, events, if you see here, are being delivered through the broker in near real-time experiences. This would actually give consumers an opportunity to respond to the events as soon as they occur. And both the producers and the consumers are decoupled from each other over here. Producers would not know which consumers are listening, and consumers are also decoupled from each other. And each consumer sees all the events that are coming from every producer. Most of our event producers, as I said, are all the product services or event consumers, our partners, ISVs, and a third-party developers, or other Adobe services as well. Now, talking about custom events. Custom events, as you know, App Builder was just announced GA yesterday, and custom events are the third-party developer events or an opportunity to all our ISVs and the third-party actually generate events from their apps or their cloud-native applications or the microservices. It's actually giving you your applications an opportunity to chat or interact with Adobe services in a bi-directional flow. And all of this is loosely coupled, if you see, independent, asynchronous, and obviously it can be scaled across services on the platforms. All of this is based on a PubSub model, which actually allows messages to be broadcasted to a different parts of system very asynchronously. And as we know, PubSub simply denotes publishers publishing the messages, which you see on the producer side, and consumer consuming or subscribing to the messages. And all these event notifications in these distributed applications happen on the go. Now, talking about consumption, how a consumption of the event would happen. Consumption of the events can be done by webhook or journaling, and Sangeeta is going to talk more about it in the upcoming slides. Next slide, please, Sangeeta. Now, if you see custom events in the hexagon diagram, yesterday we announced App Developer App Builder GA, and custom events is a part of this offering. What custom events does is it would give you an ability to publish and consume custom events with support of either the method of webhooks or journaling. And custom events are all these events that your app would be generating and talking with the Adobe services on the Adobe platform. Next slide, please. Now, custom events, talking more about it, would allow all of your native applications to emit events and integrate with our products in a bidirectional flow. And we have built custom events, basically keeping some product principles in mind. The first one is the open event specification, or which we call as the cloud events format. We generally recommend and we strongly tell everybody to adopt to this standard, because cloud events is a new specification for describing the event data in a very common way. It's a new, I would say, defining protocol or standard, where cloud events are going to simplify the event declaration and also delivery across services, platforms, and obviously it's going to add a lot of interoperability across services and platforms within and outside Adobe. The next product principle we've been building upon custom I events is the simple event delivery mechanism, which I just showed you in the diagram before. It's a simple PubSub model. We guarantee near real-time responses coming through the IO events. And also, all of this helps building more and more cloud-native applications. So you've built a cloud-native application, or you have built a microservices and you want your service or your application to send events, then custom IO events would be an answer. Next slide, please, Sangeeta.
Yeah. Thanks,
thank you. Thank you. I was just about to say I'm going to hand over to Sangeeta, and now she's going to walk you through how we can use custom IO events and how the whole flow works from the developer experience side. And over to you, Sangeeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kanika. So let us look at how your app can be a custom events provider. So now, what is a provider? A provider is any solution or product that emits events. Now, consider an e-commerce website. In an e-commerce website, you need to first register as a seller in order to be able to sell products. So this is similar to the provider. It describes the source of the events, and these events and this provider is only visible to all the users within your organization. Then all the various types of products that you can sell on the e-commerce website, that is similar to the event metadata. Event metadata is the type of events. For example, let us consider analytics triggers. Analytics triggers indicates that provider analytics triggers indicates that these are trigger events coming from Adobe Analytics. And the various type of events include something like cart abandonment, which Kanika just spoke about, or maybe a session start, keeping track of all the sessions that are currently active, and so on. So once you register as a provider and the event metadata, you're now ready to publish custom events in the cloud events format. Now that we have learned how to publish events, let us see how we can consume them. You can consume events either by the push or the pull mechanism. Push mechanism means we are pushing events to your webhook, which can be any web action or an IO runtime action. Suppose your webhook is down for a certain period of time, then we keep retrying the failed deliveries until it is successful or the number of retries have been exhausted. The events that are published to your webhook are delivered in near real time. You can also opt for batch delivery support, which will be very useful in order to increase the performance during high throughput times. Now, suppose your webhook was down for a very long time and the number of retries was also exhausted. The event may be dropped, but you can still consume them using the pull mechanism, which is through journaling. Journaling allows you to pull data from the journal at your own pace. You can also search for certain events. Suppose you have a slow consumer and you are not able to process events at the rate at which it is being published to a webhook, you can opt for journaling. Journaling is it's a hypermedia based API, which means that the link to the next pointer is present as part of your headers. And you need to keep traversing the next link in order to fetch all the data from the journal. The data in the journal is retained for up to 7 days. In order to get started with custom IO events, there are 3 ways. You can either opt for using the AIO CLI. The AIO CLI provides very easy and intuitive commands in order to manage your providers, your event metadata, all your registrations. You can simply follow the steps that are there to guide you for each command that are present. You can also we also have the AI management API for our API lovers in order to manage the events programmatically. It provides a wide range of APIs for you to create your providers, delete providers, create the event metadata, update them, and also to manage your registrations and your journal webhook endpoint. We also have the Events SDK, which is a Node.js wrapper over the IO Management API, which is easily integrated into the Adobe Developer App Builder. Now let us take a look at certain use cases where custom IO events plays a major role. The first use case is that of a funneling system. Consider you have a system that produces events at a very high rate, say at around 500 events per second. However, there's a receiver that can process only at the rate of 100 events per second. So ideally, what would you do in this case? You would probably have a queuing system like Kafka, which will help publish, where you can publish events and then you can consume them. But then there's an additional overhead of maintaining the infrastructure for managing these queuing systems. So here, custom IO events can play a major role. This is a sample architecture of how it would look like. The client solutions that publish at the rate of 500 events per second publish to the custom IO events endpoint. We have an app builder. We have an app that is created using the app builder that pulls events from the journal, batches these events, and publishes it to the slow receiver. The slow receiver can then process those batches of 100 events, and it's probably updating a dashboard or sending emails, or there could be various other use cases. Let us look at another use case. Suppose you are receiving events from certain Adobe products themselves, like it could be CC libraries, it could be from AEM, and you need to transform the payload or you need to enhance that payload, and it needs to be published to various other channels. How can custom IO events play a role in this use case? So you have the Adobe provider that is publishing events to IO events, and you have an app that is created using the app builder that receives these events either by registering it as a webhook or an IO runtime action, or you can use the journaling API to fetch these events. You can then transform these events and publish the same to the custom IO events endpoint. The custom events can then be subscribed to by the various channels, by the various users in the organizations, which can then be processed for various purposes. And now let us look at a third use case. Suppose a company wants to maintain a real-time dashboard that needs to be updated based on the usage. For example, let us take an example that the company publishes various articles or videos on multiple channels, and they want to see how their content is performing on various channels. Then they want to get a real-time performance on their content on various channels and then act on the result to derive retention strategies. Let us see this example with the help of a demo. First, let me go over the architecture. Here, we have custom IO events arising from various Adobe client solutions that are being published to IO events. We then have an app that is created using the app builder that uses the journaling API in order to fetch these events and update the dashboards. In this particular use case, we are using a journaling API in order to fetch the events. In the next talk, which is going to be given by Sahil Gera, you'll also be seeing how you can use the webhook option or registering your app as an IO runtime action in order to process events. Let's go over the demo. So here is a sample here's a sample app that has been created that has the number of active users, the top articles in the last 24 hours, the top videos in the last 24 hours, and the various categories that these articles belong to, in this case, world health and COVID-19. So let us simulate an action that is published by a client solution to the custom events endpoint, which is eventsingress.adobe.io. You have the type, which is the type of the event, and the source, which is coming from the provider ID. We have the sample event that contains test news 3 and the categories, that is cricket, sports, and Australia, and also the video. Let us publish this event. When we publish this event, we see that the data is being updated in the dashboard almost immediately. We see that the number of viewers is increased by 2 because one is coming from the article and one is coming from the video. We see that test news 3 has been updated in the top articles in the last 24 hours. The video has been updated, and we also see the categories have been updated. Now, based on this data, the client can decide either to promote test news 1 because it has more number of views, or it can choose to promote test news 3 and 2. Since they have lesser number of views, probably they require more ads in order to draw attention to those articles as well. Or if they see that a certain category is trending, for example, if sports is trending, then probably they will try to find more videos and articles that belong to the sports category because probably people are interested in those categories more. So let us see what went in creating this dashboard. Let us first look at what is required from the point of view of the IO console. You create a Firefly project on the console, and you need to add the IO management API, which is required to add a certain scope to the JWT token that is required in order to make the calls to the various IO management API and even to publish the events to the custom events endpoint. We will then go to the code. Here is a code that has been generated using the AIO app generator. We then modified that template in order to suit our needs. In this case, we are using the events and the state modules from the AIO SDK. The events module is used in order to poll events from the journaling endpoint. The state state module is being used to store the last pointer from where we had read from the journal. And every time the action is triggered, we fetch the latest position from where we had read and continue reading from the same position. We also use the AIOLib IMS in order to keep generating the JWT token based on the private key that has been provided in the environments file. We also have the manifest.yml, where we list the various actions that we need to create. We also have triggers and rules. So this particular action needs to be executed every 1 minute in order to fetch data from the journal, and it needs to update the dashboard. So every 1 minute, we keep activating this particular action. It fetches the data from the journal that has taken place for that whole 1 minute, and then it updates the dashboard. We also have the AIO CLI. The AIO CLI provides very helpful ways in which you can create the provider, you can create the event metadata, you can also manage your registrations using the same. You can also, once you have created the app, you can very simply deploy the app using AIO app deploy, which will deploy all these modules, create these actions in Adobe I/O runtime, and can be invoked using simple URLs. We have a lot of resources for you to get started on I/O events, on custom I/O events. There is an extensive API page that lists all the I/O management API. And also you can find more details on the Cloud Events spec on the Cloud Events GitHub page. We also have extensive documentation on using the AIO CLI, on using the SDK, and also using and also for a general I/O events overview. We also have several code labs to get you started with how you can build simple apps using the Adobe Developer App Builder, simple apps that use the triggers and rules in order to set up a cron job, in order to use the journaling API, in order to register your app as a runtime action. You can get all such examples through the code labs. Now, I would request you to think about it for a second on how custom I/O events can fit your organization. And would you like to do a POC for your idea? Do check out all the code labs to get all the help you can at the links that will be provided to you with the help of this presentation and also in the chat. And do reach out to us if you have any questions. We are now open for Q&A. Thank you.
Perfect, Sangeeta. So there's a question from Roger that says, also does this work using a CDN, like it is executed on the edge servers, or it comes all the way through the origin?
Okay. So if there's a way in order to publish, like all we need is an event that needs to be published to the endpoint, which is the custom events endpoint in the Cloud Events format. So as long as you're able to provide a payload that fits the needs and publish to that endpoint, it should work. Kanika, you have any other suggestions?
Yes, I think, and adding to that, it would work from any origin. We recommend using our app builder framework because all these services are tied together very strongly. So it would be a experience, and I would say a smaller TTL. I'm happy to take, Roger, happy to take your questions in a DM, or maybe I can reach out to you separately if you want to discuss this more. Next question from Muthalagu. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So he has a use case that says, show the retargeting banner in the website at the same or the next visit when someone left the page before completing the form or without the purchase. So I think this is perfect, and it aligns with what we're talking about, something similar to a cart abandonment. All you would need to do is trigger a custom event that after consuming the API, which would then be able to take the next session and generate an event every time a person has left without completing a form or purchase. We do have a blog outside which actually give details, and I'll share the reference of the blog too. Another one from Roger, which says, I noticed there is there's a separate console for cart abandonment event-driven experiences. Is this a part of Adobe I/O or separate product? So Roger, we just have Adobe Developers Console, which is our standard one place for all building all these integrations. All you need to do is just have an enterprise login and through an Adobe ID. Once you log into that, there's all the product APIs, events, and services are available within that console. There, Carmen Sutter did a session yesterday on console, and it has details. If you want to know more about console, we have also documentation available on how to get started with Adobe I/O console on developers.adobe.com. That is our website, and I'll post a link here. Okay, and another question from Tina. So Tina is telling us to get the survey done for the session. But besides this, in case you have any other questions, we'll stay here for another 5 minutes. Happy to connect with you if you have use cases you want to discuss. And also, we have Experience League forms. You can also reach out to me on kguerra@adobe.com in case you have specific questions which you want to discuss or use cases.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking our time. We are hoping you're going to brainstorm more about how we're going to be part of the event-driven scenarios and EDAs and implement your business to respond real time. Feel free to post questions. We're going to be here for another 5 minutes. And in case there's something that comes across, feel free to reach out us out on emails or the Experience League forums.